Hello and welcome to the Daily Royal. My name is Shelby and I have been a royal watcher for the past 10 years. In this podcast, I talk about the daily events of 7 of the European monarchies. So I talk about Belgium, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Sweden. I upload Monday through Friday with occasional bonus episodes here and there. Today we are talking about all of the events from Monday, June 7th and Tuesday, June 8th. As you heard, obviously, yesterday, it was just a really super slow day on Monday. So, there were 5 events in total, which is a decent amount, but I could go into detail on 2 of them. So I'm kind of, making the boundary of... if there are less than 3 events that I can talk about, in detail, then I'm not going to record an episode. But I'll always record, or I'll try to always record and be like, hey, no episode today, things are really slow. Just a minute where I talk about that. I do want to briefly talk about something going on that I'm not going to go into, a ton of detail on. But there are some things going on behind the scenes that, may require, a change, and so in this episode, I'm going to talk a lot about, the Daily Royal's YouTube channel, which is the Daily Royal Podcast is the channel name, and the reason is I've been working on this project all day and will continue to work on it for a few days probably. I am uploading every single episode to YouTube. I think it's just another platform. It is not leaving wherever you're listening. It is just also going to start being on YouTube as well. So starting tomorrow, starting the day you're listening to this, the Daily Royal Podcast will be up on YouTube for these events. So it's just another thing that I'm adding in. It's not a huge deal, but you'll hear me start to promote it a little bit more on the podcast, just because of reasons that I'm not going to talk about yet. If I need to, I will. Hopefully the behind the scenes stuff will resolve with a pretty little bow, but it doesn't seem to be happening that way. So just part of my outro spiel will now include go check out the podcast on YouTube. I will be promoting the YouTube on the website, still part of my daily I always promote the episode, so the episode will be promoted using that same system, but I'll also put a link to the video in that website post, essentially, so you can watch it straight from the website, or listen to it. There are no videos yet. Right now it is just the podcast logo and the voice recording. Down the road, there could be some video editing elements, but right now my goal is to just get them all uploaded. So I'll do this one, but I'm not uploading 2020s yet. I probably will, but I don't have those saved in the same way that I have 2021s, because I got smart in 2021 and saved them a different way. But 2020s are saved differently, so I'm going to have to play around with that a little bit more, and a little bit more editing. So they'll go up eventually on the website as well, but all of 2021s will be up. I'm halfway through March right now. It's just a process because I have to edit the video in Final Cut and then upload it, and my computer gets tired, so it has to take breaks. But I started last night and I'm halfway through March. I'll probably, by the time this is up, have March and probably some of April done. But just so you know, that's coming as well. So, anyway, that is what was going on kind of behind the scenes. So now let's go ahead and jump in, and start with the Belgian royal family. in Belgium. There was one event yesterday, but it is the weekly meeting between King Philippe and the Prime Minister, so, like, I can't talk about it. It literally happens every week, and that kind of continued into today, so King Philippe held a couple more audiences. He met with the Wallonian Brussels Federation Minister for Children, Health, Culture, Media, and Women's Rights. And then he also met with the Minister of Development, Cooperation, and Urban Policy, and that is for the federal, like, Belgian government, I believe. So those were kind of, like, boring, but they happened, and there's no detail shared on that, which is totally fine. But then also today, so Queen Mathilde visited I think they're called the Belgian Cats, I think is, like, their name, like their team name, but it's the Belgian national women's basketball team. And so they are, of course, preparing for the 2020 Olympics, which, yes, I'm still calling them the 2020 Olympics because that's what they are. It's Tokyo 2020, even though we are in 2021. But they are, of course, preparing for that. So they were having a practice session, and Queen Mathilde visited, so she was able to talk with the players. And probably the best moment, and this is going to be on the website, so please check it out, is they had her shoot a basket, okay? And so Queen Mathilde is, like, this very, like, she's not old school, but, like, of the current reigning queens, like, of the younger generation of kings and queens, she is the most traditional seeming, in terms of, like, she's very stately. I think she's awesome, don't get me wrong, but, like, I would have never expected her to participate in something like this. Queen Maxima, absolutely, 100%. Queen Mathilde, did not expect it, but she did it. I don't think the girl knows how to shoot a basketball, but it was amazing, and she made it. And I think she shocked herself more than anyone else. Like, she was so surprised. Like I said, the video is up. You can watch it on the website. The Belgian monarchy did tweet the video. I couldn't get the link to work, so I uploaded my version. I don't, like, it's not part of my YouTube or anything like that. It's just that it's their video that I happened to save. I give them credit. Because it is so funny. The first time I watched it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is not going to go in, like, whatever. And then it went in, and it was like, everyone was shocked. She was the most shocked, and the whole video is just adorable. I legit was, like, so happy when they shared that. It was just a really fun event, and I'm loving that it was, like, it felt really normal, and, like, preparation for the Olympics is such a big thing, and I don't know if this is normal. Like, I don't know, because I didn't really follow in 2016, and in 2012, I really did just follow the British royals. I didn't, and, like, the Swedish, but not really that closely because I didn't know how. And so, like, for the 2012 Olympics, like, yeah, the British royal family were doing a lot, but the Olympics were held in London, so that makes a lot of sense. So I'm not sure if this is, like, normal, or, like, if it's a COVID-related kind of thing, like, just showing support for, like, the weirdness that is going to be the 2020 Olympics. I genuinely don't know. But I loved this event. It was, like, my favorite event of the day. So anyway, that is what was going on in Belgium. It was wonderful. I loved every minute of it. And so now we are going to jump over and visit the British royal family. Things are still staying relatively quiet in the UK. This is not going to last forever, I hope. Also, like, it doesn't surprise me that things might be quiet in the UK this week. And just as there's going to be, like, a ton of foreign leaders and, like, let's not take away from the G7 that's happening in the UK by a ton of super distracting events. So the G7 starts, I think, tomorrow, or maybe Thursday. It's either Wednesday or Thursday, but I'm not exactly sure. And so that is, of course, going to take a lot of precedence. And then at the end of the week, Queen Elizabeth is going to meet with Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden, which is going to be a huge thing in and of itself. So I don't know, it's just like a big week in preparation for that in terms of, like, what is coming down the pike for the British royal family. But there have been a couple of events, certainly not a ton. So yesterday, the only thing that happened was another video was released from the conversations that the Duchess of Cambridge is having in partnership with the Hold Still Project. So that happened yesterday. Today, Queen Elizabeth continued receiving some of the new ambassadors to the Court of St. James. Today it was from South Sudan and Mozambique. This is just going to be an ongoing thing. So if she's doing 2 at a time, which I don't know if this is how this normally goes, because I don't know that it ever happened in 2020 pre-pandemic, and then she didn't do really any events until like October and November, and I think at some point in December is when they figured out how to do this, and then of course there were some other things that happened that slowed down that process even more. So for about a year's span, she hadn't received any credentials. So this is why there's so many, and it's like every other day. And also it's something she can do every couple of days and not have to leave the palace and still keep her protected. I do expect her to return. I mean, obviously she's meeting with the president this weekend. So like, I expect her to return to in-person engagements a little bit. But now we're coming up on summer, so I know trooping is this weekend. I don't know if she'll be at Ascot, but Ascot is happening this weekend, and into next week, which is the horse race. And Queen Elizabeth is an avid horse race fan, and she races, like she has horses who race. So I'm not sure. We'll see. So that happened. So again, 2 ambassadors from South Sudan and Mozambique. And then also today, the Prince of Wales took on a series of engagements in Oxford. So first he visited the Somerville College at Oxford. So Oxford is a university that has like different colleges within it. The UK university system very much confuses me. But Somerville College is part of Oxford. So you receive an Oxford degree. You can say you studied at Oxford. But it's called like Somerville College. And I think the colleges are geared towards like different interests, but that may not be true. I haven't done a whole ton of research, just from what I have gathered so far is what that means. So he was there to celebrate the Somerville College 140th anniversary. Next he visited the Oxford Botanical Garden, where he talked about plants, and I think he was involved in a tree planting, typical things. And then finally he visited the Mini, so like the Mini Cooper cars. I think it's like a brand that's under the BMW label. I mean, we have Mini Coopers in the States, and I think that's how it is like they're sold they're in the BMW family, but they're called Minis, and I don't know why I had to explain that, because I was confused, I guess. So he visited the Oxford plant for Mini Coopers, which apparently have recently launched an electric version that I now want. I'm never going to get, I probably will get one at some point, like an electric car, but I don't know when. It'll be a while, for sure. So that is what he was up to today, and then I am going to pull up the court circular. I know for yesterday there were no court circular events, so I'm not sure if there are today. I haven't looked yet. That was like my deciding factor of why I didn't record last night, because there was nothing on the court circular. So okay, court circular for June 8th. We have the ambassadors, we have the Prince of Wales events. So, okay. So all the things we talked about are, of course, on the court circular, but nothing additional. So that is what was going on in the UK, and now we are going to go ahead and move over to the Danish royal family. In Denmark is like the only country that had a decent event yesterday that I could talk a little bit about, but it still wasn't like sharing a ton. Also because I've talked about this on this podcast a few times, but I will continue to talk about it. It's just I don't want to ever repeat myself, and like I can remember my conversation about it, like my conversation. It wasn't a conversation, but me talking about it so clearly that I'm like, I feel like this is more recent than it probably was. But anyway, yesterday, Crown Prince Frederik held the delivery of the Crown Prince Frederik Scholarship, which was set up for, it was given as a gift to Crown Prince Frederik on his 25th birthday while he was studying at Harvard, and it is something that he can give out to Danish students to study, I think, just at Harvard in general. I don't think it has to be at the Kennedy School, although I do think Frederick went through the Kennedy School. The Kennedy School at Harvard is the school of, like, public management. It's where a lot of future leaders will go because it's a very strong program, and educates, obviously, I mean, it's Harvard, first of all, but also, like, the Kennedy School is very geared towards educating future leaders. Although it's interesting because I think anyone now, I think Frederick went through it. I think he's the only royal that has, to my knowledge, because King Felipe went to Georgetown, King Philippe went to Stanford, Crown Prince Haakon went to Berkeley, Crown Princess Victoria went to Yale. Like, of the studies they did in the States. But yeah, I mean, Frederick went through it. So anyway, it's still a super prestigious institution, and very cool. So that is what it is. It was really interesting. Both of the award winners are still, like, they're studying, and so they're out of Denmark at the moment, because they're studying in different countries as it is right now. So he didn't actually award it to anyone. Like, no one was present to receive it, but that's okay. It was still, like, it's still super important, but definitely could have been done digitally because, well, no one was there. None of this year's recipients were able to be there. So that was yesterday. And then today there was one event and a couple of different announcements. So the first thing is today was a Council of State that Queen Margrethe presided over. So it was held in person. I think the last Council of State was held digitally, but this one was held in person. There was like half the amount of ministers. And so these happen like every 3-ish months or so. Maybe every 2. They aren't super frequent, at least to my knowledge. Like, according to the calendar. Now that could change after pandemic, but pre-pandemic they were not super, or like during the pandemic they were like every 3 months, and then they were held different ways. But it's just a way for, Queen Margrethe signs in any like new laws, so that's a big deal. And then also it's just a way for her to be kept up with what's going on. It doesn't need to happen. It doesn't happen on a weekly basis. There are some countries that do weekly. There are some countries that do way less than every couple months. So it just kind of depends on the country. So that was the event in person. Of course, no details are ever shared because that's like government business. But then the announcements that were made today. So this one I'm still trying to figure out. But today it was announced that following the Tokyo Olympics, Crown Prince Frederik will resign as a member of the International Olympic Committee. I don't think IOC members have a tenure that he has like maxed out. He's been on the IOC for maybe since 2009, like maybe since 2009. He was definitely on it during the 12 Olympics, and 16, but it does seem like, I don't know. Anyway, so he will resign then. Also just a step towards like focusing more on the home front, which is going to be important for him in coming years, of course. Not immediately, but like certainly in the coming years. So that announcement was made. And then also today, the announcement of the date for the Crown Prince Couple Awards was announced. So I think last year they were held in late October. I can't remember. But today it was announced that they will be held on September 25th this year. So that will be very exciting. It was a really good event last year. I think it was like the first time that Frederik and Mary had been at an event together since the pandemic. So like that was what I focused on the most, I think, because it was just like such a realization that I was like, oh, I've missed seeing people with their, spouses. Like that's part of the fun of royal watching. Not always. Like there are fun moments like Queen Mathilde making a basket she never thought she was going to make. Like that was really fun. But like I didn't know I was missing it until I saw it, and then I was like, oh, I do miss that. So I'm excited for this year's. Hopefully that won't be the thing I remember about it. So I'm very excited to see this year's Crown Prince Couple Awards. So yeah, that is what was going on in Denmark over the past couple of days. So now let's go ahead and move on to the Dutch royal family. The Netherlands is where the bulk of our stuff happened yesterday. So the two events that I could really go into like the most amount of detail on were Crown Prince Frederik's and kind of both King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima's events yesterday. But Queen Maxima's is really repetitive, so I didn't count that as part of my like two events, because it happens literally every couple of days, so I don't know how to continually talk about it. But anyway, yesterday, King Willem-Alexander opened the NIDO 2021 conference, focused on nidoviruses. So when I Googled the word nidoviruses, it gave me diseases in snakes, which made me very confused. But then I went to the conference's website, and it was basically a way to talk about all the different types of viruses that go around, including SARS virus, MRSA, COVID, because this is not the only version of COVID. This is the most intense version of COVID, but it's not like the only one that has ever existed. And then like SARS is a big thing too, like, and COVID is a part of a SARS disease. It's very confusing. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't even know if that's the right term for them. If it's not, I'm so sorry, but that's what I think it is. Like, I'm not a disease specialist. I don't want to be a disease specialist. I have lived through COVID, and that is enough. Like, I don't ever want to think about diseases and viruses ever again. But anyway, he digitally opened the ceremony because, like, can you imagine? I'm sorry. I just, like, have to say this. Can you imagine this being held in person? Like, the irony of this was held in, like, a conference situation with people. Like, let's all get together and talk about viruses, including the COVID, like, 19 virus and other COVIDs. Like, it's literally cracking me up. Like, I'm making myself laugh so hard thinking about that because it's ridiculous. So clearly it was digital because the irony would just be too much to handle. And so he just opened and talked about the importance of these kinds of conferences and this kind of research. And then also yesterday, Queen Maxima digitally opened the Amsterdam FinTech Week. So FinTech we've talked about in regards to accessible financial tools using technology. And Queen Maxima is, of course, the UN Secretary General's Special Advocate for Financial Inclusion and Development, I think. Someday I'm just gonna have to write out that title and just, like, refer to it, like, on a sticky note on my computer or something, just, like, refer to it when I need it, because I always forget. Not always, but if it's been a while since I've talked about it, I will forget the full title. But anyway, so that was, of course, in her wheelhouse of talking about financial everything. So that was, you know, that I can talk about it, but I've talked about these types of things a lot. And then today, Queen Maxima continued with her regional visits. She visited the region of, I think it's Zwolle, Zwolle, to continue discussing the labor market in regions throughout the Netherlands. And this is in her role as a member of the Netherlands Entrepreneurship Committee, which today was the first time I had ever gone to their, like, Twitter page. I had never actually gone over there. I don't know why. I think I was looking for additional pictures because there was only one. So I was like, oh, let me see if they have any. They did not. They only had the same picture. But they do, it's like they have a staff picture, but Queen Maxima's in the middle because she's a member. So that was really cool. That was, like, a new picture that I had never seen before. So anyway, there was that. So that was really, you know, again, we've talked about these kinds of events because she's doing them frequently. So that is what was going on in the Netherlands. So now we are going to move over to the Norwegian royal family. In Norway, there were 3 events today. So 2 of them were board meetings. So Queen Sonja attended a digital, maybe it was in person. I don't know. They didn't say. A board meeting for the Queen Sonja Print Award. And Crown Prince Haakon took part in a board meeting for the Crown Prince Couples Foundation. But then also today, Crown Prince Haakon took part in a conversation about marine litter. So, like, garbage in the ocean. As part of World Ocean Day, and he is an ambassador for the UN Development Program, so this was all kind of done under that umbrella. But he had a conversation with the first 9 winners of the UN's Ocean Innovation Challenge. But also taking part in this conversation was Crown Princess Victoria, who opened the conference, because I think she's an ambassador for maybe the like SDGs. I don't quite know. But so it was really cool that they like did this combined event. I don't know, it was really exciting. I don't think I realized, like, I had kind of seen things throughout the day that were, like, from news sites that I'm following on the Swedish royal family, because I'm, like, figuring things out, with the Swedish royal family, and I saw this, and I was like, because I don't speak Swedish, I kind of thought it was about, like, a future engagement that is expected soonish between the Swedish and Norwegian royal families, like between Crown Princess Victoria and Crown Prince Haakon and their spouses. But it obviously was not, it was about this event. So I just was very surprised when I finally like wrote my script out or my outline, whatever, and saw that they were in an event together. It was lovely. So that is what was happening today in Norway. And so now we are going to go ahead and move on to Spain. Today in Spain, okay, so yesterday there was absolutely nothing. Today we had like 3 events. Like, oh, okay. And they're all very different. So it's not even like I can combine them. They are extremely different events, which is interesting. But then, like, for the next few days, it's just going to be the same events kind of repeating itself every day. It's going to be like living in Groundhog Day in Spain. Which is fine. I'm cool with it. But anyway, so today, let's start with King Felipe's first event. King Felipe today attended the celebration of the Royal and Military Order of San Fernando, which is given out every 2 years. So we've talked a lot about like royal orders and orders of knighthood and things like that. And Spain is not the only country that does this, but it's the only one that has, I think, like super intense ceremonies like this. So because it is only given out twice or every 2 years, it is a big deal when it happens. So it's very much like a miniature military parade event, for small, like, companies or battalions or whatever they're called in Spain. So King Felipe arrives. It's a stand on the box, receive the national anthem, hop down. He does not hop. Step down, review the troops, review the guard or whatever, and then go to like a viewing platform where the military will walk. And then there were also meetings involved, as well as the distribution of the order. So it's very similar. The Royal and Military Order of San Fernando is very similar to like an order of knighthood. So in Spain they have a couple. They have the order of, I think, Carlos III, which is what most people receive, and then there's also the Order of Golden Fleece, which is like King Felipe has it and Leonor has it, but Queen Letizia does not. And like foreign royals will have, foreign monarchs will get the Order of Golden Fleece, but this is a royal order, but it's also only for military. So I don't know if it comes with like the red sash, that's like worn on your waist. I don't quite know. I tried to do a little bit of research, but it's all very, like, confusing to me. There was an event last year that was similar, except it was a royal or a military and religious order, and my mind just did not comprehend. So I understand this one a little bit better, but I don't know what the like symbol of it is. So anyway, that was his first event, and then we are completely switching gears. And so this evening, King Felipe attended a dinner in honor of the Second International Economic Forum, which is hosted by Expansión, which is a newspaper in Spain, that is, I would say, kind of like the Wall Street Journal kind of feel. Like, it's very serious, very well researched, way more neutral than some of the other newspapers in Spain. And so, like, that's how I see the Wall Street Journal, is more of, like, the neutral. It's very much focused on, like, here are the facts. I don't think a lot of the media in the U.S. is biased, by the way. Like, please don't have that misconception. But, like, I think the Wall Street Journal is a very good example of, like, complete neutrality, which is how I see Expansión, too. Like, I personally don't use Expansión because I need to find a very specific kind of reporting when I'm looking up things, and Expansión does not provide that for me, so I will use some of the more, like, right-wing leaning newspapers in Spain because they report on the royal family the most, because right-wing is equivalent to monarchy in Spain. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so that's how I view Expansión. So he was there to attend the dinner. He gave a speech. I don't think he'll be partaking in the forum. I don't think that's on his agenda, but their week is just a lot this week. And then also today, this is like a huge rumor still, nothing is super confirmed, but it looks like King Felipe and Queen Letizia may be the first royals to host a state visit during the pandemic. So hopefully we'll see that next week, but I'm not sure. But fingers crossed, because there is talk about gala and I might lose my mind. Just saying. I don't think we've seen any tiara events since I started this podcast. And I'm not going to always lose my mind over them. Like, that's not who I am. But the first one in 2 years, I might. Just so you all know. So anyway, those were King Felipe's events. Also today, Queen Letizia visited a new exhibition hosted at the National Library in Spain. This one is dedicated to Emilia Pardo Bazán, who was a Spanish writer from, in the early 1900s. She passed away in 1921, so of course that is celebrating this year, of course, 100 years since her death. But she is one of the first writers to include, one of the first Spanish writers to include feminist ideas in her writing. So in the 1920s, and obviously she was writing before then, but in the 1920s in Spain, it was a very interesting time because it's still the Kingdom of Spain at this point. It's before the King Alfonso had to no longer be king. But it was very much similar to the Roaring Twenties in the US, where, like, people were coming into new roles and industrial work was happening and women were able to work for, like, the first time ever. And granted, they were in, like, very traditional gender role jobs, like secretaries and all of this. But when that happens, of course, there's this ripple effect of like independence and gaining independence and more feminist ideas and less controlled by your husband ideas, things like that. So she started writing about these in pre-1920s because she didn't live long into the 20s, but she started writing about them as like a pioneer of those ideas in Spain. So the whole exhibit is dedicated to her. I think it's really cool. And it was really fun to like learn more about her history. So that is what was going on in Spain. And so now let's go ahead and move on to Sweden. And finally, in Sweden, there were a couple of different events. Well, there was one event yesterday and then a few today. So yesterday, last night, Queen Sylvia attended a concert, I believe, at the Little Academy, which is one of her patronages. So yesterday, when I was writing the outline, there wasn't a lot of information. There is today. But basically, she was able to visit and tour the facility and partake in a concert. Most of their concerts have been held completely digitally this year because of pandemic. So she was able to go in person and see them. And I think they were doing some construction things because I've seen one picture of her in like a construction vest and a hard hat. So I think she was probably touring some new developments at the school, but it's a school that is completely focused on like performance and music. It's very cool, and it is one of her patronages, and I'm kind of glad. This is like the one time I'm like, hey, this is something that I'm okay that I didn't have the information yesterday because I didn't record, so I was able to share more information today. So anyway, that was yesterday's event, and then we have all the things from today. So we already talked about this, but Crown Princess Victoria took part in celebrations for UN World Ocean Day, including the digital seminar with Crown Prince Haakon. We've already talked about that one, so I won't talk about it too much more other than to say it's on her calendar too. And then also today, Victoria took part in a digital conference called Everyone Influences. There wasn't any information on that one. And then Crown Princess Victoria and Prince Daniel met with a researcher for the National Board of Forensic Medicine, which I don't know. They didn't release a ton of information on that. But then the big thing of today for the Swedish royals was Crown Princess Victoria, Prince Daniel, and Princess Estelle visited the new sculpture that was sponsored by the Princess Estelle Cultural Foundation. So I believe they met with the artists of said sculpture, which was officially like inaugurated today. Although it was a digital inauguration, so Prince Daniel did that part, and then I think this event technically happened yesterday where they went to visit the sculpture, but still. So anyway, they talked to I'm assuming the artists, took some pictures. Estelle was like by herself with the two artists in one of the pictures, which is crazy. So she is 9, and I mean, by no means was this like a solo engagement by any stretch of the imagination. Like, her parents were right there. But it is just really interesting how they're including her in this. I mean, it is a foundation in her name. She is 9, so I'm not sure, and she was 7 or 8 when it launched, so I'm not sure how involved she was in the creation because she was a child. I mean, she still is. But it is really nice that they're obviously including her. And I think this is similar to what they have done with Princess Ingrid Alexandra in Norway. Like, her foundation sponsors a lot of sculpture-y things as well. And that's a, like, piece of when she does official engagements. Of course, we haven't seen any in a couple of years, but when she does, they're typically at sculpture parks and outdoor venues. So I think it's, like, modeled after that in a way that is fun to include the younger royals in different events. So I think that's what's going on. I don't really know. But anyway, it was lovely. Everyone is like, I'm losing my mind because somehow she is, like, I swear, grown since National Day, which was 3 days ago. But also, like, she was in normal clothes. She was not in traditional Swedish national costume, which is what you do on National Day in Sweden. So, like, I love it. But she looked like a kid. She looked like a grown child, and it's just crazy. Like, she's so big, and I lose my mind every time. So anyway, that is what was going on in Sweden. It was wonderful. And so with that, I'm going to end this episode. Please check out thedailyroyal.com, The Daily Royal on Instagram, Daily Royal Podcast on YouTube. Please, please, please check out the YouTube channel. And like and review this podcast wherever you are listening to it. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a fantastic Wednesday. Bye.